Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe was born on January 19, 1809 in Boston, Massachusetts. His three major works are The Raven, The Telltale Heart, and Berenice. The Raven is considered one of Poe's most well-known works and is arguably one of the most famous poems ever written. It was first published on January 29, 1845 in the New York Evening Mirror. This poem traces a man's descent into madness and follows an unnamed narrator as he laments the loss of his love and asks questions to a raven. Poe claimed that he wanted to write a poem that would appeal to both the critical and popular senses. Berenice was first published in March 1835 in the Southern Literary Messenger. It is a short horror story that tells of a man who marries his cousin that later gets buried alive. It is considered one of Poe's most violent works and received many complaints over the gruesome details. The Telltale Heart was first published in The Pioneer in January 1843. It is considered Poe's most famous short story. It tells of a man trying to convince the reader of his sanity while describing the heinous murder he committed. A quote from Berenice says, "But as in ethics, evil is the consequence of good, so in fact, out of joy is sorrow born." Poe lived in the Romantic era. The Romantic movement emphasized that nature was preferable to the ills and evils of civilization. It revolted against established laws, traditions, and formulas, and praised creativity over reason, emotions over logic, and examined inner passions and struggles of the character. Edgar Allan Poe was a quintessential example of the Romantic writer. He asserted that intellectual elements held no place in art, and throughout his works, his characters were dominated by their emotions, and his stories were set in fantastical worlds to push the reader towards the ideal and the beautiful. His writings also contained surprise events or unexpected endings, and often highlighted the bizarre and unusual, which is a characteristic of Romantic writing. Poe lived through the beginning of the War of 1812 as well as the signing of the Treaty of Ghent. This was believed to have inspired his poem, The Man That Was All Used Up, which was based on Winfield Scott, a veteran of the War of 1812. He was also alive during the discovery of gold in California and the beginning of the gold rush, which influenced his poem El Dorado. We should read Poe today because his writings have passed through hundreds of editions and his popular works have never gone out of print. This is because there's something in his works for everyone. They appeal to many emotions, including joy, passion, hope, rage, and fear. His well-written works encourage deep evaluations of the reader and enable you to better understand and find yourself. Poe has an amazing historical legacy, including that he is the father and inventor of the detective story. He revolutionized the mystery and crime literary genre, and his first edition works sell for thousands and his manuscripts for tens of thousands. Even though Poe has been dead for over 100 years, he still has an amazing impact on society today. Nearly all writers show traces of his influence, and he's inspired numerous writers including Charles Baudelaire, Jules Verne, and H.P. Lovecraft. There are also arrays of film and television and radio adaptations of his writing. When Poe was 26, he married his 13-year-old cousin Virginia Clem, who later died of tuberculosis. The NFL football team, the Baltimore Ravens, are named after Poe's poem, The Raven. Poe died on October 7, 1849, and is still to this day considered one of the most influential and widely known authors ever to have lived.